Welcome to all. Welcome to the webinar Exporting Avocados to Europe, organized by CBI. My name is Thomas Vonk, and I'm working for CBI in the Market Intelligence team. Let's start today with some of the house rules. You can see it on your screen now. So please ask your questions via the questions tab on the right of your screen. Most questions will be answered during this webinar. So we cannot see or hear you. If you have technical problems, you can also ask questions and maybe my colleague can solve that problem. There will be a recording of this presentation, and the recording will be available a few days after this webinar. And also the presentations of our presenters will be sent to you as well when you are registered. Okay, and let's go to the agenda for today. We'll start with the welcome and a very brief introduction on CBI. And also we have 2 poll questions to get to know you better. Then Michel Peperkamp will start the main presentation of today. Michel is a market research supplier for CBI in the fresh fruit and vegetable sector. He also has a very long experience in doing that for CBI. I already told you the house rules. We'll skip that. We go to the agenda. I was already introducing Michel Peperkamp, who is a main presenter of today, and who is also a market research supplier for CBI. And then after the first part of Michel, we will have the questions and answers. And then he goes further with how to enter the European market. And the second presenter of today is Piet Schotel. Piet is a sector expert in the import of fresh fruit and vegetables, and he is experienced in value chain development and developing new businesses for SMEs from developing countries. He's also working for CBI as a business and expert coach. And then we close today with questions and answers. You can ask your questions via the question tab to all of us. Okay. I will briefly tell you about CBI. Our mission is to support the transition towards inclusive and sustainable economies. We do this by strengthening the sustainability of small and medium enterprises in developing countries. We encourage exports of value-added products to Europe and to the local region. And we promote and create decent jobs. And with that, we pay special attention to women and youth. We support women in management positions and women entrepreneurs. And we stimulate sustainable trade and production. And we mostly do that by organizing a 4-year export program projects. You can see that here on our website. And we offer free market information for about 14 sectors, of which the fresh fruit and vegetable sector is one. Please go to our website and check if there's valuable information for you to find. Now we have some poll questions, which I would like you to answer so we get to know you better. And you also know who are you, with whom you're in this webinar. I already saw on the registrations, which is very interesting, that you as the audience are coming from 50 different countries. So very proud of that. You're coming from Asia, South America, Africa, Europe. First poll question I will launch now is, are you an exporter or an importer? Just here to learn. please answer. I'll give you a minute for that. Okay, you're doing great. 70% already voted. %80 voted. I'll give you another 10 seconds. Okay. I've closed and now I'll share the results. So that's very interesting. We have a lot of potential exporters and of avocados to Europe in our audience today. And we have a lot of people working in a business service organization or for the government. And very nice to read as well that a lot of you are here to learn. And especially for the potential exporters and exporters, but also maybe for the government organizations and business support organizations, what do you think is the biggest challenge when exporting avocados? They will launch this now. What do you think is your biggest challenge? Yes, you've also noticed you can have more than one answer. There are a lot of challenges in this business. Okay, I'll give you 5 more seconds. Okay, thank you. I'll close it and I'll share it with you. And now you'll see that, yeah, for you, complying with the European requirements is your biggest challenge, followed by finding buyers for avocados and, of course, understanding the market demand. Okay, that's probably a good start for Michel to know. That what are the challenges for the audience he has today, and he will definitely tell something about that. I will make Michel the presenter now, and he will start his presentation.
Thank you, Thomas. I believe everybody can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. So I will try to show my screen as well, which is not functioning at the moment. Just a second. Seems we have a little bit of problem with sharing screens today.
Oh, no, I already made you a presenter, Michel, so.
I see. Maybe you can tell me what you did to show your screen.
Do you have the button share screen, or you don't see that?
Oh, now it's working.
Okay, great.
Just a second. Yes, okay, it's working again. I think the technical staff intervened. Should come online now. There it is. Yes. Okay, happy to that it worked. So yeah, my name is Michel Peperkamp. I'm the company owner and director for ICI Business. I have been working quite a few years at CBI on the market intelligence, but I also help companies doing business in Europe in the food sector, including fresh fruit and vegetables. So today, avocado, we will talk about a few main questions today. A little bit about the European demand, how it develops, which countries may offer most opportunities at the moment. Also the trends, which trends play a role in the developing demand, and the competition, which is evolving, and what you need as an exporter to really become successful on the European market. So we start with the market demands. I'm glad to see that there are a lot of potential exporters in this webinar, because I think, especially for them, it will be quite relevant to know more about the market. And let's start off with some general perspectives. So the global production volume is expected to reach about 12 million tons, which is 3 times more than a decade ago. With this, avocado will be the second best-selling tropical fruit in the world in 2030. That's the expectations. Mexico is the largest producer at the moment, has been for a long time. They may increase their production about 5.2% on an annual basis in order to fulfill the demand, which is growing globally. But Mexico mainly supplies, of course, the United States. Countries such as Peru, Colombia, Kenya, they continue their growth with double digits. Most of their exports are actually destined to the European market. Avocados will also overtake, or is expected to overtake the export volume of both pineapples and mangoes. According to the Agricultural Outlook report from the OECD and the FAO, avocado will become the second most traded tropical fruit by 2030, and this is after bananas. It will overtake the export volume of pineapples and mangoes, like I said, and a growing global demand and major investments in production are at the base of this expansion. So the European Union, they will be responsible for about 31% of the global imports in 2030. And the United States and the European Union are expected to remain the largest importer. So the United States has a market share of about 40% and Europe about 31% of the global imports in 2030. That's the expectation. Despite of the growth of other regions such as China, the Middle East, this means that Europe will definitely be and remain an important focus for growers and as exporters. But it's also important, I think, to diversify your markets and not just focus on the United States and Europe. So it's really important to anticipate other market growth as well. Let's see the next slides. So yeah, there has been a strong growth over the last decade. The European import volume has grown from below 200,000 tons in 2011 to almost 700,000 tons in 2020. Last year, in 2021, I expect the growth to be around 8.5% compared to 2020. And there's still clearly room for growth, but the market development is also becoming less predictable. Our growing consumption triggered the global production, and the larger supply again drives the demand. So that's a circle that has maintained itself for the past years. But the increasing production volumes and the number of available origin countries of avocados, they make the market a lot more volatile. And 2018 is probably a good example of how excessive volumes can push down the value or the price of avocados when production volumes reach exceptional heights. And in this case, this was due to the very high production in Peru and South Africa at the same time. And you can expect these fluctuations to become more regular as the market matures. The good thing is that a large part of avocados are purchased in supply programs. This means that most avocados are sold, at least in Europe, under retail contracts. And the advantage of this is that higher volumes can be pushed into the market when there's a higher production, although promotions will result in lower pricing. So additional volumes of avocados do not only depend on the spot market, and that may be a good thing. Let's see about consumption. If you compare to some other regions, Europe has become one of the largest markets for avocados, and to show that there could still be potential for further growth, you can compare the current consumption with, for example, Northern America. Mexico is logically the strongest and traditional consumer of avocados. But even in Canada, the consumption per capita is almost twice as high as the European average. This is not the latest data, but it's relatively recent data. And industry sources reveal that the consumption of avocados in Europe has grown with 11% from 2019 to 2020. And according to the World Avocado Organization, the avocado consumption in Europe could reach the same level as in the United States in the next 8 years. So yes, there's still room for growth. And of course, within Europe, there are large differences between countries in the popularity of avocados. So it's important to see which countries may present growth for exporters. So looking at the countries, I made more or less an overview in which you can define more or less different countries based on the current import volume, especially, of course, from non-European production countries, the consumption and the consumption per capita, and the consumption growth and growth potential. So let's start off with the countries with imported imports, with the highest imports. And starting off with the Netherlands. The trade statistics in the Netherlands are a little bit blurry. There are differences between statistical databases, so these are not exact numbers, but it shows that the Netherlands is really a hub country. It has a hub function. The import in the Netherlands, it comprises the domestic consumption, so import for domestic consumption, but also trade through Dutch importers, which are responsible for a big share of the total European avocado imports, but also a logistical function for traders in other European countries. So a lot of avocados go through the Netherlands to their destination markets. With this, the Netherlands is responsible for more or less half of Europe's avocado imports, and is also the largest non-producing exporter of avocados in the world. So you have to consider the Netherlands as your main trade hub for avocados when exporting to Europe. And I would say that a lot of Dutch traders have become specialists in this market with ripening facilities, packing, logistics. If you look at the Dutch market itself, it's because it's a trade hub. It's also relatively big in consumption, although it's a bit hard to calculate in this case. But you can definitely expect it to be a strong consumer. Then Spain is currently in the second place. It has a high input volume, but it's also Europe's largest producer of avocados. So it fulfills a supplier role with both domestic and imported avocados. The production is estimated to be somewhere between 60 and 100,000 tons per year. And imported avocados mainly come from Peru, Mexico, and an increasing supply from Morocco, which is just south from Spain. And with this, they can extend actually the avocado season in Spain. You can expect a growing consumption in Spain, but they will also continue to play an important role in the supply to other European countries. And most exports from Spain and most traded avocados, they will end up in France, which is the third on my list. And France is actually one of the largest, if not the largest, destination market for avocados at this time. The consumption is relatively high with over 2 kilos per capita. The growth will be a bit slower than some of the other countries, but that's because the market is also reaching its maturity. And there's definitely a preference for regional imports, for example, Spain, and possibly also organic avocados. Then the countries with high potential. I think one of the main ones I would like to mention, of course, is Germany. Germany has a high potential for growth, and this is due to three reasons. First of all, it's the biggest country in Europe. It has a high population of about 83 million people. Its current consumption rate is still quite low, about average or a bit lower than average. But the growth rate is definitely above average, as you can see in the graph. For the past 5 years, it's over 100%, and between 2019 and 2020, 23%. So there's a good growth going on in Germany, and I think favorable consumer prices and the attention of more healthy eating, including due to the COVID-19 pandemic, of course. These factors definitely contributed to the growth. And I think the promotions of supermarkets and discount retailers such as Lidl and Aldi, they also have a positive impact on the sales. But also be aware that these supermarkets in Germany are also among the strictest in Europe concerning pesticide residues. So yeah, Germany has also a high sales revenue for organic food in Europe, so it could also be an interesting market for organic avocados. Going to the next country, United Kingdom, no longer part of the European Union, but still, of course, a big market with a strong retail sector as well. But here the consumption growth seems to have flattened. despite of the lower growth, it's still among the main destination markets for avocados. So there's definitely room to sell avocados in the future. But yeah, take into account that the growth is not as much as other countries, opposed to, for example, Italy and Poland. These are definitely strong growing markets. In terms of import, these countries do not come close to the volumes of the main markets. And there's also a lot of indirect imports, so imports via other European countries. But yeah, both countries have a decent population size, and growing consumption can be positive for suppliers from non-European countries as well. So these are countries to watch, I would say. Then the countries with the highest consumption per capita. Let's go on. So yeah, today the countries with the highest consumption rates are definitely important target countries for the current avocado sales. These countries include, of course, France, like I mentioned, but also Switzerland and the Scandinavian countries. These are relatively mature markets, so there will probably not be an exponential growth. But yeah, except for France, most of these mature markets are also relatively small sized. So there's probably a lot of indirect import as well via other countries. But most of these countries do have a high purchasing power. So they will definitely be responsible for a good earning in this avocado market. Going to the trends for avocados today, and which play an important role in the developing demand. Starting off with health, of course, in general, people are looking for enjoyable and healthy foods, and avocado is a versatile fruit that fulfills this need. It can be used in salads, on bread, as a dip, and this explains a little bit the success of avocados in Europe in the past decade. And I think the COVID-19 pandemic has had limited negative effects on the avocado consumption. I think the retailers definitely compensated for the closure of restaurants, and consumers just continue to consume avocados. So the pandemic actually increased the demand for many healthy products. So that has been good for avocados. Healthier food also drives the niche market for organic fruits and vegetables. And this market for organic avocados is still fairly small. But with the overall growth of organic food, I think the demand for organic avocados will also be on the increase. And Germany and France have the highest retail sales of organic food, both between 11 and 12 billion euros. That includes, of course, all foods and not just avocados. And the organic consumption is in particular high, relatively, in the Scandinavian countries, Switzerland and Austria. Then I would say the next trend is definitely a convenience trend. Ready to eat has become one of the standards for avocados. I think the European consumer has gotten used to the quality products, but also a fast consumption. Many consumers do not want to wait to get fruit to ripen, so they buy well ripened or ready to eat avocados. And this gives the consumer both quality and convenience at the same time. Especially in Northwestern Europe, consumers are willing to pay for a premium price for these ready-to-eat avocados. As an exporter, you can best capitalize on this trend by focusing on importers with ripening facilities and supply avocados with an acceptable dry matter content. I will get back to that a little bit later. And ripening technology is also being improved, so consumers are getting a better and better experience when buying these avocados. And I think a lot of these ripeners, they use their facility also as a service to their retail clients. Ready to eat is really a retail requirement. And I believe only a few years ago, the German retail chain, Lidl, they opened one of the largest ripening facilities in Europe, actually in the Netherlands, for where they ripen avocados and other fruits and distribute all over the Benelux. The ready-to-eat trend is particularly strong, like I said, in Northwestern Europe, United Kingdom, the Netherlands, but many other countries are definitely following. And it will continue to develop further and help boost the consumption. But as an exporter, you must always be aware of supplying the right uniform quality and maturity. For example, as an exporter, you can, of course, use portable meters to check maturity or dry matter before sending your shipment. Another trend is sustainability. Let me get to the next slide. And there's increasing focus, as most of you know, on sustainability. And the sustainable product has become basically a precondition when you supply the European market. One of the main issues for avocados actually is water use, but also deforestation, social circumstances. These are important themes for every exporter of avocados. As a supplier, you will have to take measures to guarantee you have a sustainable product, but you also have to back them up with the proper certifications, which I will get back to later as well. So I'm more or less in the middle of my presentation. Maybe there already are a few questions. Thomas?
Yes, thank you, Michel, for this first part. Yeah, to all of the audience, if you have questions about this part from Michel, please ask them in the questions tab. I have one question. Is there domestic production in Europe, and is the domestic production increasing in Europe, and how will this affect the import?
I think it's increasing, but probably not not in the same rate as the production in many other non-European countries. Of course, it will affect some of the market because there will be more avocados available within Europe. But of course, we are not able to supply a year-round supply of avocados. So we need producers in other countries and other climates. And Spain, for example, the main producer of avocados, they only cover a couple of months for avocados, and the rest of the year we still need the other supply. So it will affect something, but I wouldn't really fix just on the production, but also on the seasons, and compare those with your competitors.
Thank you. I have another question from the audience. Is the certification Rainforest Alliance a trend amongst importers?
I think it is, and I will also come back to that. I think it's one of the maybe one of the most recent trends that I can see at the moment. Okay. Yes, definitely.
Definitely a trend. And I think there's a question relating to that. What are the sustainability and environmentally demands on producing countries to export to Europe? And maybe Piet is going to say in his part about this as well.
Yeah, the second part we will definitely talk more about requirements, and Piet will, I believe, also get some more practical examples from his point of view. So we will definitely get back to those. But yeah, certifications is an important part of your of you getting ready to export to Europe.
Okay. And there's one question. You talked a lot about the ripening process, and that's a strength of the Netherlands. we have a question. Could you elaborate briefly on the ripening process? Who are the main players in France and the Netherlands?
I think there are several. The process, well, that's maybe a more technical story that could be answered better by the proper people. It's also a process that is still getting improved. So I'm not sure if I'm on the latest technical knowledge on that. But it's definitely an important thing that people want to be able to manage and manage well. There are several companies involved in that, and then of course you have companies such as Nature's Pride, which is probably one of the biggest ripeners and service providers, also to retail chains. In France, you have companies that are together with Westphalia Avocados. I believe Comexa is one of the companies in France. So yeah, there are several companies that have ripening facilities. They're usually quite big, I would say. Smaller importers, they may use the services of other companies, other ripeners as a service. So you can also focus on companies that help with ripening.
Okay, thank you. And here's a question on the varieties. Which varieties of avocados are most popular, and in which markets, in which end markets? So what are the popular varieties, and does it differ for different countries?
I will get back to that information as well, but I can tell you now that the Hass variety is of course the most popular variety, and that has everything to do with the fact that they're easy to ripen, they are good in transport, taste is good, so those are definitely. The Hass variety definitely has the advantage.
Yeah.
But I will get back to that information.
Okay.
As well.
Let's do one more question, and then we go to the next part. And then after that, there's another part for the questions.
Definitely.
How is the level of export of avocados coming from Africa? And then specifically Rwanda. So do you see an increase of export from avocados from Africa? And if you have knowledge about Rwanda specifically, then that would be nice.
Okay, we're talking about the volumes, I imagine. The volumes from Africa are definitely on the increase. South Africa is the biggest exporter still, followed closely by Kenya. I will come back to those countries as well in the my next slides. But if you talk about other countries in Africa, I would say Tanzania, several other countries. Rwanda, I think the supply is still very small. But yeah, I know there are a lot of ambitions in several countries in Africa to supply more avocados. I can show a little bit more of data of the more larger competitors in avocados, including some African countries. But everything has to do with how you can make sure that your product is a high quality and reliable product. And logistics are well organized. So there are a lot of challenges, I would say, still for a lot of countries in Africa, especially if they lack the logistical infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to your next part, Michel.
Okay, thank you. My screen is still shared, I believe, so I can go directly to to your competition, I would say. Yeah, so how is competition evolving? Let's have a look at these numbers. The number of supply countries has diversified quite a bit. It's a mix of dominant countries, stable exporters, but as well upcoming supply countries. And you can definitely see in practice that size matters. Larger exporters that can really provide a reliable product, perfect cultivation, and good compliance with the European markets. These are usually most successful. If you work with a lot of smallholders, it is sometimes a bit more difficult. But yeah, if you look at these countries, Peru, of course, is the #1 supplier to Europe, followed by Mexico, the world's largest producer. Let's get into Peru a little bit, because that's probably the biggest success story. They have developed a very dominant supply. And basically, when Peru is in season, it will definitely be really hard to compete. And that has to do with, well, first of all, they're a supplier of a good product, but also an abundance of production. In the figure, you can see there's been an oversupply in 2018. This was, of course, the reason that the prices dropped. And this will probably be repeating in the future. So it's a bit unpredictable. The strength of Peru is they have a large production, but they also have some larger companies that are able to provide reliability in the supply. At the same time, Peru has become its own largest competitor at the same time. So you can see when Peru really comes into the season, that general prices usually go a bit down because of the sheer volume. But yeah, it's a successful country that has developed their supply chain of avocados. So Mexico is trying to increase its share in Europe as well, but they're so focused on the USA market that for them they're really focused on the requirements of the US market, and a bit less on the European market. But yeah, their production size, their seasons, they almost have an all-year supply. They can definitely be a strong competitor for the European market as well. But if you look at the emerging markets, I would say Colombia, Kenya, and Morocco are definitely countries to look at. In Colombia, avocados is becoming a success as well. They have a favorable supply season. Much effort has gone into getting the production into the right quality for the European markets, and this shows in the export figures. So Colombia is definitely an emerging country, and today Europe's third largest supplier. Kenya is also growing quite fast, maybe not as much as Colombia, but it has definitely a favorable climate for producing avocados. And they are competitive in pricing. At the same time, they have a relatively long transit time, and a lot of exporters also work with many smallholder farms, which are a lot more difficult to manage. And I think these factors probably hold back a little bit on Kenya, because the production is there. And they definitely have potential, but yeah, there are some circumstances that make it more difficult for Kenya. And I would say when I talk to importers in Europe, a lot of them are a bit reserved in buying Kenyan avocados, as well as other avocados from Eastern Africa or Central Africa. But nevertheless, the import is definitely increasing year by year. So in the region, I would say Kenya is definitely the most successful one, if you don't count South Africa or Morocco. And other countries like Tanzania, Rwanda, they could copy that success, as long as you're able to make sure that your supply is reliable, your product is high quality, you have all these certifications, and logistically you can get your product fast enough to the European market. Because those are definitely important challenges to counter. Yeah, the third one, Morocco, of course, they are close to Europe, so they can extend the season of Spain. And you can see some growth from the side of Morocco as well. In addition to these emerging suppliers, I think there are several other countries definitely wanting to enter the European market, like I mentioned. Tanzania is one of them, but also Central America, for example, Guatemala is also increasing their focus and avocado export to Europe. And then we have a couple of other countries which are more stable, which are Chile, Israel, and South Africa. These countries show less expansion to or less drive to expand, but these countries are very capable of competing with high quality products. So they can remain stable throughout. They can remain stable through the production of quality products. Well, the next point I think to focus on is the season, because you're not necessarily competing with all these countries, but it really depends on the season. And finding your supply gap is probably one of the important things you have to do. So this is an indicative supply calendar. If you look at the European imports combined with the different seasons. And there you can see that all these countries that I mentioned, they more or less make sure that we have avocados all year round. So yeah, the Peruvian avocados, they really dominate throughout the European summer. And most of these countries, they have a few months in which when their supply is really strong and of ideal quality. So on the edges of the seasons, that's probably where you have to look for supply gaps. And of course, like I mentioned, you really have to know to get your product on the right on the right quality level to be able to compete with most of these countries. And that's the second part of my presentation, of course, is how to become a successful supplier and how to enter the market successfully. And then we talk about, for example, pesticides, diseases. There is an EU regulation for the maximum amount of pesticide residues that can contain your product. But most supermarkets, especially in Northern Europe, they are often much stricter than the European regulation. So you can find the official residue limits on the EU pesticide database, but you have to make sure, or you have to really look at the specific requirements of your buyer, because if they supply a retailer in the north of Europe, it's pretty sure that you have to comply with much stricter rules. So really look at the end markets and the individual end clients. And I think an experienced importer, they will know these details, and they can share those details with you when supplying them. Then next is quality. Avocados really need to arrive in a good shape. Avocados, they need a proper post-harvest cold chain and efficient logistics. So you avoid freeze damage. and you maintain the proper temperature to maintain their shelf life. Watch out with rough handling, transportation from the field to the packing house, for example. And avocados that have damages or diseases, they basically are taken off the market straight away. And the costs to do that are usually for the supplier. So that's definitely a risk you have as an exporter. Also check out the marketing standards. I always like the OECD documents for fresh fruits and vegetables, because they also show a lot of pictures. So yeah, in short, I would say maintain good quality through efficient transit times and excellent climate control. Then the variety, it was already mentioned. Hass is the most demanded variety in Europe. This is, of course, has to do with the fact that it's a good product for transport, it's easy for ripening, and it has a good taste. But there are definitely other varieties that you can find in Europe. There's definitely demand for green varieties. I would say this demand would be a bit more dominant, I guess, in Eastern Europe, possibly Italy. But you really have to focus on these avocados, especially when they are destined for ripening facilities. That is the dry matter. There are different guidelines. It's for the Hass variety, it would be minimum 21%. But I think if you supply a ripening facility, it could be somewhere between 21 and 23%. This is really something you have to discuss with your buyer, and you really have to make sure that the maturity is uniform throughout the whole parcel. So you cannot have a box with different avocados, one being more mature than the other, because this is impossible for an avocado ripener. So these are important aspects to take into mind. Talking about packaging, which is probably all known by experienced exporters. But if you're new in the business, most packaging are 4 kilo boxes, but it can also be 10 kilo boxes or crates. Sometimes in plastic for big users and ripeners, and 4 kilo boxes are more for the wholesale market and selling the boxes. You have to make sure that the packaging protects your product well. So use strong carton, ventilation holes, of course, and pack them well. As you can see on the picture here on the right, you see they're really neatly packed. This is definitely a plus instead of just tossing them into the box. Preferred sizes in Europe, it's usually sizes 16 to 20. For the Fretted variety, it could be 14 to 16. This is all per box, per 4 kilo box. Bigger sizes, such as 14, they're more easily sold in Southern Europe, but also small sizes in the beginning of the season can be sold in affordable boxes of 10 kilos. So yeah, examples of presentation and packaging. You can see a couple of examples. Some use stickers for consumers. On the right, you can see the plastic crates. This is ideal for ripening facilities. And in between, you see some wholesale sales in boxes. And you can see some differences in how they are packed or organized, but also the difference in maturity. Then the most important thing when exporting is prove that you have a good product, a quality, safe product, but also sustainable product. So it's one of the most important things when you're exporting, because these certifications will give your buyer a guarantee, and it's not optional anymore. So global gap is definitely a minimum. Without it, maybe if it's a really bad market, you still have a chance, but otherwise there's no chance you will sell anything on the European market. The social standards, I would say SMETA is probably at the moment the most recommended one. But like mentioned before, Rainforest Alliance is an upcoming requirement. I hear it more and more often from more importers, but also retail buyers. So that's definitely a trend. So next, after SMETA, definitely focus on Rainforest Alliance. But of course, food safety also has to be in place. Make sure you have, especially when you're packing avocados, when you're processing avocados, be sure to have a food safety management certification, such as BRC or IFS or something similar. And you can expect buyers to ask more and more for additional certifications. For example, on the use of water, you have, for example, the Global Gap Spring Edition add-on, which really focuses on your use of water. And that will be especially important for countries where water is becoming an issue. And of course, you have specific standards such as retail standards. Tesco Nurture is an example, and also the organic certification for organic avocados. And the only organic certification that will do is the European one, and the other ones you can forget about, because for Europe you really need the European certification. So yeah, look at the CBI website for the market potential of avocados, the market entry for avocados, but you can also find tips for finding buyers, for example. So definitely go to the website of CBI. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them after the presentation of Piet Schotel. Thank you very much so far.
Thank you, Michel. I will make Piet the presenter now. And Piet, can you start your presentation?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
And can you see me?
Yes, also.
My presentation, I mean.
We can see your presentation, but it's not
Okay.
in presentation modus yet.
I'm going to full screen now. All right.
Yes, thank you, Piet.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, or good morning for part of the world. Let's talk about the EU avocado market a little bit more. My name is indeed Piet Schotel. I'm a consultant in general for the overseas imports of fresh fruit and vegetables into Europe. In general, I'm saying, but the last years, I'm maybe by accident or maybe because the sector is growing, I don't know. I'm more and more specialized in the avocado part of the import business. My background and knowledge is all about importing fruit, based on working many years in the import business. Working for CBI in assignments as sector experts, and presently occupied with projects, avocado projects in Mexico, in Lebanon, Peru. I did some advice in Kenya and in Tanzania. A big part of my story will be basically the same as Michel already told you, but now a little bit more with the emphasis of the importer. Working as a sector expert means that you're constantly talking and working with importers, and yeah, they will tell you what is happening in the import business, what is the short-term view on things. Importers, for a big part, are not really looking very long term. They see what is coming in the coming season, what is coming what is happening in the coming months, and therefore I think it's good to talk a little bit more on the short-term situation. If you look at the situation in the last half year, there was absolutely no shortage. Most season producers for September until, let's say, February, March, were in an on year. They had much more production than a year ago. Which made that, for giving you an example, that last year importers this time, February, March, they were paying easily $11 and more based on free on board for a 4-kilo box of avocado. At this moment, they will not go higher than $8. So there is a huge difference. And they make no promises at the moment. Last year, they say, get everything you can. And this year, they say, be very careful because we see that there is too much and there will be coming too much. So year to year, there will be a difference, clearly. But what we feel is that there is a saturation nearing. And it is going in peaks and dips throughout the year. This last half year, we definitely had too much. We saw that markets were under pressure. Consumption remained good, but there was simply too much supply. Like Michel also told you about the situation in 2018, that repeated actually last year in 2021, where in the peak season of Peru and South Africa and Kenya, there was simply too much and prices were really going down and stayed down for quite some time. For the rest, it remains a game of supply and demand. That is in our business. There is always a crisis somewhere. It is a supply and demand business, but you see that in general there is a lot, like the climate. There is a trend that the temperature is going up, but you see peaks and dips in temperature. What we see that supermarkets, they have their own margin policies, strategies, and their margin and pricing strategies decide finally the end result the buyer will get back at the farm gate. Supermarkets have their ideal price level for an avocado. They work with certain sizes and they know what is the best price level to sell avocados. And if there is an oversupply, they definitely will do extra promotions to keep going. But that definitely will also have an effect on the result you will get as a farmer on the farm gate. It is all about retail. It is all about supermarkets. And when we look at the situation in Europe, all over Europe, approximately in average 75% of fresh fruit and vegetables is being sold via the supermarkets. In the north of Europe, meaning Scandinavia, but also the UK, this percentage is even higher. In the south of Europe, it will be a little bit lower because you have still more open air markets, street corner shops, smaller shops. But in the main countries, main consumption countries like Germany, UK, the supermarkets really are telling us what to do and how to do. That is all about following their requirements. If we don't do that, we are not a part of their deal. It means that there is an enormous concentration in buying power. There is not so much outside this 75% where we can sell our product. It means that everything is based on the requirements of the supermarkets. That means a high level of professionality is required from the producers. Because if you don't follow the requirements of the supermarkets, where will you leave your product? It is their demand which is driving the business. Supermarkets, they work in programs. They are not doing the day-to-day business. They program their supply, their demand. So they work in programs, meaning that they need continuity. They program their buyings per season, per month, per week, meaning that if the consumer sales are going well, there is a good demand for the programs, and maybe there is a shortage, which means that the spot market can supply extra. If the consumption is just meeting the purchase level of the supermarkets, then there is no extra demand on the spot market, and that means that the sales to the spot market will remain dull or absent even. Now, supermarkets, they don't want to have any issue with food safety. They don't want to have any negative publicity about pesticide exceeding. So it is for supermarkets all about food safety. Basically, supermarkets want to have control on the whole chain, so to speak, from seed in the ground to shelf in the supermarket. Michel already told you quality. Actually, it is undebatable. There is only room in Europe for first-class products. Second grade is hardly marketable. If there is a very good market, you might get away with a little bit lower quality. But if the market is just so, you will get punished for everything which is not first class. And then, indeed, the ripening quality counts. Avocado is all about the ripening quality. Importers even sometimes will negotiate with you based on the level of the percentage of avocado meeting the after ripening quality. They will sort after ripening. Nowadays, with the modern techniques, they can really sort after ripening the quality meeting the requirements for the supermarkets. And then only then they will tell you the results for what you will get. If we talk about ripening, the dry matter for Hass definitely will have to be 22, but also not in a very wide range, not 22 till 30, because that gives you an uneven ripening result. Avocado quality, it is more than the eye meets, it is the eternal quality, and not a very nice green avocado arriving, but what's inside. If we talk about the dry matter range, you see, just as an illustration, this is a very nice outside quality of avocado, but if you're going to ripen this particular box, then you get quite a bit of difference in outcome, because you see there is from hard green to already quite dark. Most probably because the dry matter range in this particular box of avocado is too wide. When ripeners have a very sophisticated way of doing, then maybe they can indeed, after ripening, do the selection in maturity. But if not, then this will be a problem. We talked also about logistics. Last season, specifically about last season, The corona pandemic caused a lot of problems in the logistics. Containers were scarce, shipping lines changed their routes. They decided last minute to skip ports and to sail via other ports, and programmed shipping schedules of 22 days became 45 days. Well, this is just a nice example what it means if your product is 45 days in a CA container and when it comes out of it. It also directly brings the matter of what also was discussed. I heard a question about Rwanda. Just as an example, how quickly can you get your fruit from Rwanda into the European market? Being landlocked, even some other countries in Africa already have a challenge to get their product within 30 days into Europe. So logistics is a very important issue in the avocado business, because you can keep your product for a good long time well maintained in controlled atmosphere containers, but not forever. And it is also directly linked to the post-harvest handling, and also even pre-harvest. When do you cut? Which maturity grade you cut, etc. I'm not a specialist in that, but definitely the experience learns that there is an end to the number of days you can keep an avocado, clearly. Talking about the packaging, this is also a practice, not the right practice. This is not a unique situation. Many good producers of avocado, they save on the quality of boxes, because paper is very expensive. Carton boxes are expensive. And if you have the choice between one box and the other, and there is 10 cents of difference, maybe producers are making the wrong choice and choose the flimsy boxes instead of the strong boxes. And then you have the nice English saying, penny wise, pound foolish, saving a penny and losing a pound. Because like this, if it comes out of the container, the manual labor in Europe is too expensive to make this a nice pallet again. It costs you everything. This beautiful box, presentation-wise, could really be better. You see that one stalk is up, the other one is down. For the rest, the avocado look beautiful. Then directly, a quality inspector will say, but look, if you look at the stalks, some of the stalks are too short. And that's true, because without stalk, you have much more danger of fungus inside of the avocado, and that causes a danger. So the one in the middle with the nice stalk, almost let's say almost a centimeter, that is ideal. But then still, they could have been better presented in the box. This is just for illustration. What Michel already said, the bigger sizes are most welcome in Haas, meaning 16, 18 are the real supermarket sizes, followed by 20 when the price levels are a little bit higher. The supermarket may change to 20. Some supermarkets, they do 2 on a tray with a seal, and they use or 20 or 22s. And then if you go in the smaller sizes, meaning the babies, sizes 26 up to 32, they always will come in 10 kilos, because it makes no sense to put them in a carton box, an expensive carton box, because those small sizes will be packed in nets, and then you save really money by putting them in a nice plastic crate with 10 kilo. They will be packed anyway. Food safety is a key issue. Requirements, yeah, okay, general food legislation, the European laws, blah, blah, blah. It is about supermarket leads. And I know there is a difference between the north of Europe and the south of Europe, but things only get worse or better, just from the perspective you want to look at it. There is stricter and stricter control on the residue levels. Supermarkets, they have their own set of rules, and if you want to have a good chance in Europe, you better go for the most strictest rules, which are basically, funny enough, put by the discount supermarkets in Germany. They sell at popular prices, but they have the highest level of requirements, not only in residue, but in much more issues. If you take a Lidl or an Aldi, which are the bigger discount supermarkets in Germany, but all over Europe they are present, they only permit a third of the legal permitted levels. And yeah, that sounds quite harsh, but it is possible. Their shops are full. So it is also a matter of technique. It is a matter of having your knowledge, working with the right engineers, following all the new techniques. But keep in mind that if you want to do business with Europe, you have to follow their rules and better go for the most stringent rules and be able to serve everybody than just do something and then finally being blocked by a part of the retail chains. I just made a nice example of an analyzed report on avocado from Mexico. This is just an example. This could have been also from other countries, so let's not look at the country too much. But you see that to make clear, every container is being checked by a laboratory. Every grower is being checked by a laboratory. If you have 3 growers in a container, 3 different global gap numbers, then you have 3 different analyzers. Here you see that maybe it's difficult to read, but the lambda C-halothrin is exceeding 330 times the permitted level in the EU. It's legal level. So yeah, you can imagine that this is already a problem with the importer, because they are exceeding a legal level. So this has to be even, let's notify to the authorities. Lambda C-halothrin, another. This is very often used in avocado. Again, I'm not an agronomist, but they assured me that there are alternatives for this product. In this specific analyze, there is no mention of permethrin, but that is also an issue being used very many times with avocado, which you should really not do.
Piet, I'm going to disturb you a bit now. We're running out of time, so I don't know how much time you still need.
I can do it quickly. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Okay, this is then the rest of this analyze. You see that every supermarket chain mentioned on this sheet is being no. Means that certificates will prove what you bring. The global gap is a minimum entry ticket, no way around it. Global gap, don't come, no global gap, no chance. Social is the new knockout, already discussed by Michel. Hygiene protocols, even if your packaging is certified global gap, then there is even an extra demand for at least HACCP, but rather BRC or IFS. And about sustainability, as said, it's all about care for the environment, about social circumstances for the workers. There is a growing demand for the ethical part of the trade. Have a look, you all will get the presentations. I did some links to some of those sustainable websites, organizations. You see that it is all about certificates. SMETA, as a social certificate, is at the moment ruling. GRASP is already becoming a minimum, but rather GRASP and SMETA. But now, because SMETA is not everywhere welcome, you see that the bigger organizations in the countries where it is possible, they will start demanding Rainforest Alliance. Well, it's just an illustration of the number of certificates being asked by the various supermarkets. How to do the business in Europe? Yeah, post-harvest quality, certificates, logistics, all combined. Make sure that everything is in order. Find the right buyer by desk research and help from experts, meaning CBI or other organizations. Look at avocado specialists. Don't go for the general importer who will sell potatoes, mango, tomatoes, and avocado. They will do, they will trade, of course, but rather go for the chain players, meaning the suppliers of the supermarkets, because then you're in the chain directly to the retail. There will be hardly any direct sales to retail organizations. There will always be a distributor, an importer, distributor, service provider in between. Look for those and not a general trader. Don't count too much on social media. I'm an old-fashioned guy. Pick up the telephone, or if needed, first start by email. And of course, start visiting trade fairs. Fruit Logistica in Berlin and Fruit Attraction in Madrid are the most important ones in Europe. And have a look at the CBI website for more tips in finding the right buyers and having the right buyer requirements. Thomas, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Piet, for your practical advice and stories. We have a lot of questions, but we're also out of time. So let's find 5 more minutes for questions. Yes, you can stop your sharing your screen, Piet.
I wish I knew how to do that. Stop sharing screen. Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So let me combine some of the questions. There were some questions about the critical certification requirement as well, but I think especially in your last part, Piet, you already answered that. So let's skip those. And there were also some packaging, very practical on the packaging. What is the requirement for packaging the avocados, and on the most required size. Can you answer that, Piet?
Well, it is a little bit on who and where are you supplying. If you are supplying companies who really repack everything, it is a waste of money, of paper, to use expensive carton boxes. Some of those companies, they can have every size in the 10-kilo boxes, because they will repack in their own packaging, or in small pack, or in consumer pack. Very much in general, all over Europe, 4-kilo boxes carton are being used in the sizes 12 to 24, and smaller in 10-kilo crates. And 10-kilo crates always with a small size, because it makes no sense to put them in carton boxes. Yeah, we can go much deeper into that.
No, I think I get it. So it's most very important that you discuss it with your buyer, with your client.
Exactly.
What are his preferences for the packaging? Okay.
And never save money on paper.
That's important. And then there were 3 to 5 different questions about the imports from Africa. So what are the import challenges for Africa and how to improve? How could the African suppliers improve that? And also relating to that, how is the fact that not every African country has access to sea freight? How does that involve that? Is that a question for you, Michel?
Yes, I've been involved a little bit with avocados from Africa. I think there are two main challenges. One is on company level. So you have a lot of companies with the ambition to export to Europe, but they have a hard time in complying with the requirements. Sometimes it has to do with the amount of smallholders, which are really difficult to manage to get a product which is well, if the same product throughout a lot, because you will have a lot of differences between different producers. So selecting and grading the right avocados, there's a big challenge. But there's also a challenge on country level, I think, and that has really to do with logistics, the transit time, the distance to the port. If you look at Kenya, which has been more or less successful in avocados, they already struggle with these transit times, and these will be even harder for countries such as Rwanda or Tanzania. I also saw a question about these transit times. If other countries such as South Africa has the same problem, but I don't think so. The transit time from South Africa and also Latin America is actually much shorter than Eastern Africa. So that's a great advantage for them. So you really have to work on company level as well as on country level to get these supply chains improved. That would be my opinion on this.
Okay, thank you. So then were some questions about the prices. That's always an issue, of course, but is there a kind of a source where they can find what the prices are and maybe for different seasons?
No, not really. There are some commercial websites, I think, where you, for a good lot of money, can buy some statistics, even week prices, market prices. But how realistic are they? I know that one of the suppliers of information, they simply take the weekly quotations of import companies and they do an average price. But quotations are not the real price. Quotations is okay. We ask €10, but after negotiation maybe we get only 8. So what is real price? It is very difficult. It is one of the most heard questions. Where can we find reliable price information? And I don't have a good answer for that. The best is to talk directly with importers and benchmark, not only with one person, but with various sources and people like us. I mean, we are on top of the market, and we know what the price levels are. It is a very difficult thing, and especially in hindsight, it doesn't give you any information what will be in the next 4 weeks.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. One more question about avocados from Asia. Do they have a chance on the European market? how is their position for exporting to Europe?
They're also relatively far away from the European market. So that will definitely be a challenge. And I would definitely not focus all my arrows to the European market, but I would focus more on the regional markets, China, for example, maybe Australia. But the European market will be challenging. But if you can manage to get them here, like Piet said, if you're fast enough with your avocados to get them here, and you make sure that the cold chain is well managed, yeah, it can be possible. It can be done, but I'm not sure if the current transit times allow for it.
So
I also saw some questions about air freight, Thomas.
Yes. Will there be air freight in another 3 to 5 years within avocados, or is only sea freight?
Yeah.
Piet?
Sorry, for Piet.
That we never thought that we would ship avocado by air, but last year when the market was so tight, when there was so strong demand, and with the really very competitive air freight rates from Mexico, the project where I was involved, we exported 500 tons by air. It was totally crazy. I mean, but now it would be totally impossible because the prices are not that strong that it can support the air freight, you know. So no, normally not.
Okay.
If you talk about trends, I would confirm also that the trend is less and less air freight. Only if it's really necessary and the market is so tight. Yeah, then there will be air freight. But the general trends, air freight is not considered sustainable. And a lot of retailers as well as importers, they are not really interested in air freighted avocados if they don't have to.
No, exactly.
Thank you. So last question, something to do with the current situation in Europe. What is the impact of the war in Ukraine in the avocado sector?
That is a good question, and it is a question which is now really being on the table. There will be changes. Russia is not the biggest player in the world of avocados still, but Michel told me that they did 50,000 tons in 2020, and that only became more, of course, in the last year. Yeah, that definitely will not go because there are no shipping lines anymore available. There cannot be money transferred. So that market will fall away, and yeah, Europe is being the only outlet for the moment where they can go. That is the first thing we think about. Second thing is what will happen in the shipping routes in general. I mean, there will be disturbance of lines, if not now, very shortly, but maybe later when. Yeah, you know, it's all about offer of shipping volumes. The main concern at the moment is about citrus from Africa, from Egypt, from Morocco, from South Africa. How will that be affected? Because Russia and Ukraine are big markets, but they are also the driver for much more products. You know, if that volume will be difficult or will be rerouted to Europe, what will happen, you know? So it's a concern, but nobody really has the answer yet. There will be consequences, but yeah, also depending on how long things will be on the table, how long and how severe things will develop, or maybe will be resolved. Hopefully.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So we're going to close this presentation. We are over time already. Last thing, just which I want to show you is we have two studies on our website about avocados, the market potential study, and the market entry study. So you can visit our website, cbi.eu market information, go to the market information sector, fresh fruit and vegetables, and find your study on avocados. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope it has been good information for you. Thank you, Piet, and thank you, Michel, for your presentation. And we hope to see you in more webinars in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Piet.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.